Hi everyone, how you all doing? Happy Sunday, how you all doing? Yes, I'm down at my retirement home that I'm getting ready to officially open soon. So I'm fixing up the rooms and cleaning and stuff. And I said, you know what, I need to get into my reading. Just have always, just, as usual, just have so much stuff doing. But anyhow, such is life. So hope you're all okay. Hope all is well. Alright, so let's just get into our story as usual. So the name of the book is Flowers in the Attic, and it's written by Virginia Andrews and narrated by me, Karen Weir. So we had finished chapter 9, and we're now at chapter 10, and chapter 10 is about, the heading is Mommy's Story. Mama's story. So we're going to get right into it. So you can, those who have been following, thank you. Those who have not, just go on my YouTube page, which is Karen Vibes, KarenVibes, with an exclamation sign, and you can just catch on to where I started and where I stopped. So chapter 10, we're just going to get right into it. Mommy's story. Cover. These books are so old that the covers are actually tearing apart. Need to get some glue to glue on, but I didn't even realize that the back was off. Yeah, but makes no sense I put it on now. When I get home, when I go home, I'll just put the covering on. Alright, so without further ado, after the grandmother's departure, we did not know what to do or what to say, or how to feel, except unhappy and miserable. My heart was fluttering madly as I watched Mommy slip up her blouse, button it and tuck it in the waistband of her skirt before she turned to give us all a tremulous smile that sought to reassure. Pitiful that I could find a straw to grasp in such a smile as that one. Chris lowered his eyes to the floor. His restless torment was expressed by his shoe, diligently following the intricate scrollwork of the oriental rug. "Now look," said Mommy, with forced cheerfulness. It was just a willow switching, and it didn't hurt too much. My pride suffered more than my flesh. It's humiliating to be whipped like a slave or an animal, and by your own parents. But don't worry that such a whipping will occur again, for it never will. Only this one time. I would suffer 100 times over what whip wheels I bear to live again those 15 years of happiness I had with your father, and with you. Though it cringes my soul, she made me show what they did. She sat on a bed and held out her arms so we could cluster close about and be comforted. Though I was careful not to embrace her again and cause more pain. She lifted the twins to her lap and patted the bed to indicate we could crowd up against her. Then she began to talk. What she said was obviously hard to say and equally difficult for us to hear. So let's hear what the mommy has to say. I want you to listen very carefully and remember all your lives every word I say tonight. She paused, hesitating as she scanned the room and stared at the cream-flocked walls as if they were transparent, and through them she could see into all the rooms of this gigantic house. This is a strange house, and the people who reside here are even stranger. Not the servants, but my parents. I keep looking through the window because I'm expecting somebody to come and do something with the ramp, but I don't even know if they're still coming today. Anyway, sorry about that. I should have warned you. So the mother is telling her story to the children now. I should have warned you that your grandparents are fanatically religious. To believe in God is a good thing, a right thing, but when you reinforce your belief with words you can take from the Old Testament that you seek out and interpret it in the way that suit your needs best, that is hypocrisy. Hypocrisy. And that is exactly what my parents do. My father is dying. Yes, but every Sunday he is carried into church either in his wheelchair, if he's feeling that well, or lying on a stretcher if he's feeling worse. And the word, because the chichi was eating out this book, part of the word is gone. Oh, sorry, and he says, if he's feeling worse, I think I can make out the word. So let me start back from here. If he's feeling that well or lying on a stretcher, if he's feeling worse, and he gives his tithe, a tenth share of his yearly income, which is considerably. So naturally, he is very welcomed. He paid to have the church built. He bought all the stained glass windows. He controls the minister and the sermons, for he is paying his way to heaven with gold. And if Saint Peter can be bribed, my father will surely gain entrance. In that church, he is treated like a god himself or a living saint. And then he comes home feeling completely justified in doing anything he wants because he has done his duty and paid his way. And therefore, he is safe from hell. As I read this, I remember somebody was saying something to me the other day, saying, oh, they want to make sure that, well, that's the person was saying, like, when next year come, if God spare their life, New Year come, they want to ensure that they're in church, because when they die, they want to make sure that they're buried in a church. And I'm just saying that people just have some weird, well, everybody's entitled to their own opinions, but people just have some weird thoughts of salvation or religion or whatever the case is. Me always tell people, when I die, bury me under a tree, have the service or whatever, get together under a tree, so everybody say what they have to say, and bury me. I'm not a fussy person. I don't have to be in a church or building to be buried. But I guess to each his own. If some people just going into church just to be able to be buried in a building, I mean, that don't make any sense, but as I said, to each his own. Alright, let's continue. When I was growing up with my two older brothers, we were literally forced to go to church. Even if we were sick enough to stay in bed, we still had to go. Religion was rammed down our throats. Be good, be good, be good. And that's all we ever heard. Every day, normal pleasures that were right for other people were made sinful for us. My brothers and I were not allowed to go swimming, for that meant wearing bathing suits and exposing most of our bodies. We were forbidden card games or any sort of game that implied gambling. We weren't allowed to go to dances, for that meant your body might be pressed close to that of the other sex. We were ordered to control our thoughts, to keep them off lusting, sinful objects, for they said the thought was as evil as the deed. Oh, I could go on and on and on about all we were forbidden to do. It seemed everything that was fun and exciting was sinful to them. And there is something in the young that rebels when life is made too strict, making us want to do most of all the very things denied to us. And I think that is very true. You have some children, when they're grown up into a strict situation, not all, but I think most, when they're grown up into a strict home and stuff, when they get old at the end of the day, now they rebel and do all the things that they were told not to do. So, I guess they say 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Our parents, in seeking to make their 3 children into living angels or saints, only succeeded in making us worse than we would have been otherwise. My eyes widened. I sat spellbound. All of us did, even the twins, at her story. Then one day, Mommy continues her story. Then one day, Mommy went on, into all this, a beautiful young man came to live. His father had been my grandfather, a man who died when this young man was only 3. His mother was named Alicia, and she was only 16 when she married my grandfather, who was 55 years old. So, when he gave birth to a boy, she should have lived to see him a man. Unfortunately, Alicia died very young. My grandfather's name was Garland Christopher Foxworth, and when he died, half of his estate should have gone to his youngest son, who was 3. But Malcolm, my father, gained control of his father's estate by having himself appointed administrator for, of course, a 3-year-old boy. For, of course, a 3-year-old boy had no voice in the matter, nor was Alicia given a vote. Once my father had everything under his thumb, he kicked out Alicia and her young son. They fled back to Richmond to Alicia's parents, and there she lived until she married a second time. She had a few years of happiness with a young man she'd loved since her childhood, and then he too died. Twice married, twice widowed, left with a young son, and now her parents were dead as well. Oh my goodness. And then one day she found a lump in her breast, and a few years later she died of cancer. That was when her son, Garland Christopher Foxworth IV, came to live here. We never called him anything but Chris. She hesitated, tightened her arms about Chris and me. Do you know who I'm talking about? Have you guessed who this young man was? I shivered. The mysterious half-uncle, and I whispered, Daddy. You're talking about Daddy? Yes, she said, then sighed heavily. I leaned forward to glance at my older brother. He sat so still with the queerest expression on his face, and his eyes were glassy. Mommy continued, Your father was my half-uncle, but he was only 3 years older than I. I remember the first time I saw him, I knew he was coming. This young half-uncle I'd never seen or heard much about, and I wanted to make a good impression. So all day I prepared myself, curling my hair, bathing, and I put on what I thought were my prettiest and most becoming clothes. I was 14 years old, and that is an age when a girl just begins to feel her power over men. And I knew I was what most boys and men considered beautiful. And I guess, in a way, I was ripe for falling in love. Your father was 17. It was late spring, and he was standing in the middle of the hall with 2 suitcases near his shabby shoes. His clothes were very worn looking, and he'd outgrown them. My mother and father were with him, but he was turning around, staring at everything, dazzled by the display of wealth. I myself had never paid much attention to what was around me. It was there. I accepted it as part of my heritage. And until I was married and began to live a life without wealth, I hardly recognized that I'd been raised in an exceptional home. You see, my father is a collector. He buys everything that is considered a unique work of art. Not because he appreciates art, but he likes to own things. He would like to own everything if possible, especially beautiful things. I used to think I was part of his collection of objects, and he meant to keep me for himself. not to enjoy, but to keep others from enjoying what was his. My mother continued, her face flushed, her eyes staring off into space, apparently looking backwards to what exceptional day when a young half-uncle came into her life to make such a difference. Your father came to us so innocent, so trusting, so sweet and vulnerable, having known only honest affection and genuine love, and a great deal of poverty. He came from a 4-room cottage into this huge grand house that widened his eyes and dazzled his hopes. And he thought he had stumbled onto good luck, into heaven on earth. He was looking at my mother and father with all of that gratefulness plain in his eyes. Ha! Ha! The pity of him coming here and being grateful still hurts, for half of what he was looking at, by all rights, should have been his. My parents did all they could to make him feel like a poor relation. Can you imagine? I tell you, some people are so terrible. Some people in this life are so terrible and unfair the way they treat others. I know this is just a story, but these things happen every day and they happen in real life. Some people just not fair. We just don't play fair. But let's continue. I saw him there standing in the sunlight, beaming down through the windows, and paused halfway down the staircase. His golden hair was haloed by an aura of silver light. He was so beautiful, not just handsome, but beautiful. There's a difference, Real beauty radiates from the inside out, and he had that. I made some slight noise that made him lift his head, and his blue eyes lit up. And oh, I can remember how they lit up. And then, when we were introduced, the light went out. I was his half-niece and forbidden, and he was disappointed just as I was. For on that very day, with me on the staircase and him down there on the floor, a spark was lit between us, a little red glow that was to grow larger and larger until we could deny it no longer. I won't embarrass you with the telling of our romance, she said uneasily, when I shifted and Chris moved to hide his face. Let it suffice to say that it was love at first sight with us, for it happens that way sometimes. Perhaps he was ready to fall in love as I, or perhaps it was because we were both needing someone to give us warmth and affection. My older brothers were both dead by this time, killed by accidents. I had only a few friends, for no one was good enough for the daughter of Malcolm Foxworth. I was his prize, his joy. If ever a man took me from him, it would be for a dear, dear price. So, your father and I would meet furtively in the gardens and sit and talk for hours and hours and hours on end. And sometimes he'd push me in a swing, or I'd push him, And sometimes we would stand on the swing and work it with our legs, and just look at each other as we flew higher and higher and higher. He told me all his secrets, and I told him all of mine. And soon enough, it had to come out. We had to confess that we were deeply in love. And right or wrong, we had to marry. And we had to escape this house and the rules of my parents. Wow, what a story. So we're gonna leave it right there for today, and we will be back tomorrow. Yes, we'll be back tomorrow. We're gonna leave it right there. So we're still at chapter 10, and tomorrow when we get back, we'll see where they had escaped to. Alright folks, so thank you for joining me today. I'm gonna get some more straightening up and put up some drapes and get stuff going. So, and I'll show you guys when I'm all done and the place is ready and I'm officially open. I'll show you what's going on officially. So thanks again. You all have a beautiful Sunday. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And no matter what, just try to be happy and take life in strides. I try to do that. It doesn't make sense to sit and stress over things that you have no control over. Just take one day at a time. Yep. Alright, so remember to like and subscribe to Karen Vibes on YouTube. So it's KRENVIBES. So it's two different words. KRENVIBES with an exclamation sign. Type that in on YouTube and you'll get onto my page. You'll see a little pink rose and then you'll see my videos of my reading. So tell a friend, like, subscribe. I really appreciate it. Remember to leave a comment. Still waiting on the comment. And every time I come on I say the same thing. Still waiting on your comments. Anyway, we'll be back on tomorrow. So take care of yourselves. Peace out.